The library stood as a sanctuary in the heart of the bustling town, its tall shelves stretching toward the ceiling like ancient trees in a forest of knowledge. Sunlight filtered through the large windows, casting soft beams that danced across the polished wooden floors. The air was thick with the comforting scent of aged paper and ink, a fragrance that whispered of countless stories waiting to be discovered. Inside, a gentle hush enveloped the space, punctuated only by the occasional rustle of pages or the soft tapping of keyboards as librarians tended to their daily tasks. Each staff member had carved out their niche in this world of words. Mrs. Thompson, the head librarian, meticulously organized new arrivals while sharing knowing smiles with regulars. Young interns occasionally bustled about, eager to assist visitors and learn from their seasoned colleagues. As patrons wandered through the aisles, they were often lost in thought or engrossed in the covers of books that beckoned them closer. Children sprawled on colorful rugs, captivated by tales narrated during storytime sessions, their laughter ringing like music amidst the quiet ambience. Nearby, an elderly gentleman sat at a table near the window, reading his favorite novel for what felt like the 100th time. But each page still held magic for him. Every day followed a comforting rhythm. Patrons would come and go, exchanging smiles and greetings with one another. The library was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a place where friendships blossomed over shared interests and where solace could be found among shelves filled with words. Little did they know that today would disrupt this tranquil routine. A day when an unexpected visitor would arrive to change everything. The stillness of the library was about to be shattered by a gentle presence that would tug at their hearts and weave itself into their lives forever. Just as the clock struck 10, a soft rustling at the library entrance caught the attention of nearby patrons. A Labrador, golden and exuberant, bounded through the door as if it had been waiting for this opportunity all along. Its fur shimmered in the gentle sunlight streaming through the windows, and its tail wagged with infectious enthusiasm, bringing an instant smile to everyone who noticed. The dog paused at the threshold, momentarily captivated by the surprising world of shelves and sentences that surrounded it. With a slight tilt of its head, it seemed to take in the sight of books stacked almost to the ceiling, like mountains waiting to be scaled. Just then, Mrs. Thompson, sensing the movement, turned from her desk and gasped softly at the sight of this unexpected visitor. She chuckled, shaking her head with disbelief, unsure whether to chase after the dog or let it explore. As patrons began to notice, reactions varied from shock to sheer delight. A group of children sitting on the colorful rug squealed in excitement, jumping up to meet their new friend. The elderly gentleman who had been deeply engrossed in his novel set his book down, smiling broadly as he watched the Labrador approach with an innocent curiosity. Wandering from table to table, the dog sniffed at bags and shoes, its bright eyes sparkling with joy. Interns rushed to ensure the canine's safety. Some grabbed treats from their lunch bags while others scrambled for a scrap of paper to write "Lost Dog" as they hurried into the lobby. The atmosphere shifted from peaceful contemplation to a lively buzz as laughter filled the room. It wasn't long before everyone decided that this charming creature was indeed a welcomed guest in their beloved library. Little did they realize how deep an impact this playful dog would have on each of their lives in the days to come. As the initial excitement of the Labrador's arrival settled into a more contemplative atmosphere, mixed feelings emerged among the library staff. Mrs. Thompson regarded the dog with a blend of affection and caution. "He's adorable, but we need to maintain order," she murmured to herself, glancing at the energetic creature that had now claimed a sunny spot in the reading area. Across the room, David, a young intern, knelt down to pet the dog, beaming as it licked his hand. "Come on, Mrs. Thompson. He brings so much joy. Just look at how happy everyone is," he exclaimed, swept up in the dog's charm. However, Sarah, another librarian who had spent years maintaining a quiet environment, watched with concern. "We can't have a dog running around here. It'll distract people from their reading," she replied, arms crossed defensively. The staff members began engaging in hushed debates about the best course of action. Some believed that allowing the Labrador to roam freely would create chaos in a place designed for calm contemplation. Others pointed out that its presence could foster warmth and community among patrons who may be struggling with loneliness. As murmurs filled the library, the dog ambled over to a corner where a group of children sat eagerly awaiting story time. It plopped down next to them, inviting laughter and affection that spread like wildfire through the room. The children giggled and hugged the Labrador, igniting smiles on even the most stoic faces. Witnessing this unfolding scene softened Sarah's resolve just a little. She sighed and shook her head, realizing that perhaps, just maybe, this playful pup could add an unexpected layer of life to their cherished haven. Yet, on the other side of her heart lingered fears about maintaining decorum in their beloved library. The decision loomed heavy before them. Should they welcome this joyful distraction or uphold their long-standing rules? As the days passed, the Labrador began to weave itself into the fabric of the library, leaving a lasting impression on the patrons who frequented its halls. Many found solace in its gentle company, which seemed to dissolve their worries. Emily, a single mother struggling with the demands of work and parenting, often sat on one of the plush chairs with her two young children. The moment they spotted the dog, their faces lit up with joy. The Labrador would trot over, tail wagging, and settle at their feet. For Emily, watching her children laugh and play with the dog offered a brief escape from her daily stresses. One rainy afternoon, as she flipped through a book on parenting, an elderly woman named Margaret approached her hesitantly. "I lost my dog last year," she confessed, her voice quivering slightly. "Seeing him reminds me of what I miss." Emily nodded empathetically, sharing stories of how her own family pet had brought them comfort during tough times. The conversation flowed naturally, each woman finding connection in shared experiences of love and loss. In another corner of the library, a teenager named Kevin sat with headphones on, seemingly lost in his own world. When the Labrador wandered over to him, he initially pushed it away but soon relented, allowing the dog to curl up beside him. As he absent-mindedly scratched its ears, a smile crept onto his face. The unexpected companionship opened up a dialogue between him and another patron nearby, who spoke kindly about his own dog and how pets can provide support during challenging times. The Labrador's presence encouraged patrons to open up, share stories, and form bonds that transcended the silence typically found in libraries. It became clear that this playful pup was not just an unexpected guest. It was a catalyst for healing and connection among diverse individuals navigating their own struggles and joys in life. As the days turned into weeks, Mrs. Thompson, the head librarian, noticed a profound change within herself, thanks to the presence of the Labrador. Once a solitary figure who found solace in books and quiet routines, she began to look forward to each day with renewed enthusiasm. Watching the dog frolic among patrons brought her unexpected joy and companionship that had been missing from her life for far too long. In her quiet moments at work, she would observe how the Labrador interacted with visitors. Children squealing with delight as they played fetch, seniors smiling as they reminisced about their own beloved pets. Each wag of the dog's tail seemed to connect directly to her heart, reminding her that warmth and laughter could thrive even in a place known for silence. One afternoon, as she sat at her desk sorting through catalog cards, Mrs. Thompson felt a slight nudge against her leg. Looking down, she found the Labrador leaning against her, seeking attention. With a soft smile, she reached out and scratched behind its ears. In that simple gesture, a bond was formed, one that spoke volumes about companionship and understanding. She whispered sweet nothings to the dog, sharing bits of her own story. How she had moved to this town years ago for love, but ended up alone after an unforeseen heartbreak. Later that week, she decided to host a small gathering for patrons who had shared their stories with one another about their experiences with pets. The Labrador was there at her side, greeting guests as though it were hosting its own party. As laughter filled the air and voices intertwined like threads in a tapestry, Mrs. Thompson realized how much this four-legged friend had filled a void in her heart. Through caring for the dog and witnessing its impact on others, she found herself shedding layers of loneliness and opening up in ways she hadn't thought possible. The Labrador became more than just an unexpected visitor. It became a turning point in Mrs. Thompson's life, a reminder that connection and love can come when you least expect it. One sunny Saturday, the library organized a special day of activities to celebrate the Labrador's presence, and excitement buzzed in the air. Mrs. Thompson had decided that the energetic dog would play a starring role in story time, inviting children and families to gather in the main reading area. As the event kicked off, the children sat on colorful mats, eyes wide with anticipation. The Labrador, wearing a bright red bandana around its neck, pranced into the room, tail wagging and tongue lolling in pure joy. Mrs. Thompson began reading aloud from a picture book about a dog on an adventure. The Labrador listened intently, occasionally tilting its head as if trying to follow along. When it was time for the children to participate, Mrs. Thompson announced that each child could take turns sharing their own stories about pets or favorite animals. As one little girl named Mia excitedly recounted her adventures with her kitten, the Labrador wandered over, resting its head on her lap as she spoke. Laughter erupted as Mia stroked its ears, and everyone felt an even deeper connection to the moment. After story time concluded, Mrs. Thompson led a treasure hunt where children searched for hidden dog bones throughout the library, plastic replicas cleverly tucked between bookshelves. The Labrador became a delightful guide, bounding ahead with enthusiasm as kids chased after it, squealing with delight at every discovery. Later in the afternoon, an impromptu game of fetch broke out in the courtyard outside the library. Families joined in, tossing balls while the dog raced back and forth, retrieving them with boundless energy. The joyful barks and laughter echoed through the air, creating an atmosphere of sheer happiness that enveloped everyone present. As the day came to a close, parents expressed gratitude for organizing such a heartwarming event that brought their community closer together. Children left with smiles on their faces and newfound friendships forged through shared experiences. The Labrador had not only enriched their day, it had created lasting memories that would resonate within the library's walls for years to come. As news of the Labrador's delightful presence spread, word of mouth ignited excitement in the community. Local families, who had previously frequented the library only for books, began to flock to the space, eager to meet this charming canine that had brought so much joy. Social media buzzed with posts about the remarkable dog, and soon enough, stories were shared among neighbors at parks and coffee shops. Inspired by the outpouring of affection, Mrs. Thompson decided to organize a special community event, Paws and Pages Day, inviting families and their pets for an afternoon of fun and bonding at the library. Flyers were posted around town and distributed through local schools, announcing activities like pet-themed story readings, a best-dressed pet contest, and even a pet talent show. On the day of the event, families arrived with their dogs in tow, some tiny and fluffy while others were large and boisterous. The atmosphere erupted with excitement as laughter mingled with barking, creating a joyful cacophony within the library grounds. The Labrador was appointed as the unofficial host. It wandered among the guests, greeting each new arrival with tail wags and friendly licks. Mrs. Thompson kicked off the activities with a heartwarming storytime session featuring beloved animal tales. Families filled the seats on the patio while children showcased their pets in adorable costumes during the contest. Everyone clapped and cheered as dogs pranced around proudly, dressed as superheroes or princesses. The highlight came when kids got to participate in a talent show where they demonstrated tricks alongside their furry friends. One little girl named Sarah made everyone laugh as her dachshund pretended to read a book by lying on it dramatically. These moments sparked connections between families who chatted about their own pets and shared stories that revealed mutual love for animals. As shadows lengthened and laughter continued to resonate through the now bustling library grounds, it became apparent that this gathering was more than just an event. It was a celebration of community spirit fostered by one lovable dog. The bonds formed that day would linger long after the last guest departed, testament to how something so simple could bring people together in uplifting ways. The day after the heartwarming Paws and Pages Day, a sense of lingering joy enveloped the library. Families spoke of the delightful event, and Mrs. Thompson felt a newfound purpose as she continued to develop the community spirit that the Labrador had inspired. However, as the afternoon faded into evening, an unexpected challenge arose that would test everyone's bond with the beloved dog. As closing time approached, Mrs. Thompson noticed that the Labrador had wandered off from its usual spot near the entrance. Initially dismissing it as nothing more than a playful exploration, she called out its name. "Buddy, time to come back." But when there was no response, anxiety rippled through her heart. She enlisted David and several patrons who were still lingering to help search for the dog. The trio spread out across the library grounds, looking behind shelves and under tables, calling out, "Buddy, where are you?" As they searched, a sense of worry began to fill the air. The joyful chatter of the previous day was replaced by hushed whispers and concerned glances. Families who had previously enjoyed the dog's presence exchanged worried expressions with one another, their hearts aching at the thought of losing someone who had brought them all together. Emily clutched her children close, explaining that sometimes pets can be adventurous but always come home. Margaret joined in the search, recalling her own lost pet and how deeply it had affected her. Minutes turned into what felt like hours as panic set in. Mrs. Thompson's heart sank at the thought of letting down not only her beloved companion, but also the community that had embraced it so wholeheartedly. Just as they were about to expand their search beyond the library grounds, a familiar barking echoed through the air. Rushing toward the sound, they found Buddy happily trotting back toward them, his red bandana slightly askew and tail wagging furiously. The collective sigh of relief was palpable. Laughter mingled with tears as everyone rushed to welcome him back. In that moment of joy, all worries vanished, reaffirming the connection they had formed as a community. One that would continue to grow around love and shared experiences, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the initial shock of Buddy's disappearance transformed into a sense of urgency that gripped the library community. Mrs. Thompson rallied her staff and patrons, urging everyone to spread out and search for the beloved Labrador. "Let's check behind the bushes outside and along the walking paths. He could have wandered off in any direction," she instructed, her voice steady but laced with worry. Families who had spent recent days bonding over Buddy's antics now joined forces in a collective effort. David led a small group toward the nearby park, calling out Buddy's name while scanning the area for movement. Emily, with her children at her side, combed through the library grounds, anxiously peering under tables and around bookshelves, her heart heavy at the thought of the dog feeling lost and alone. "I can't believe he's gone," she whispered to her son, who clutched his stuffed animal tightly. "We've all gotten so close to him. It feels like he's part of our family." Her words echoed in the hearts of those who had grown attached to Buddy, highlighting how this playful dog had woven itself into the fabric of their lives. Nearby, Margaret shared her own experience of losing a pet, recounting how lonely it had made her feel. As she intertwined her arm with Emily's, they exchanged comforting glances, drawing strength from one another during this stressful time. "We'll find him," Margaret said reassuringly. "He's too loved to stay away for long." As the search stretched on, feelings of desperation mixed with determination surged through the crowd. They ventured further from the library into surrounding neighborhoods, knocking on doors and leaving notes with Buddy's picture on them. The emotional stakes felt high. He was not just a dog but a source of joy and connection. Just when spirits began to falter, a chorus of barking reached their ears. It was Buddy. He bounded into view, some dirt smudged on his fur but otherwise unscathed. Relief washed over the searchers like a wave as laughter broke out among them. It was as if the very air was filled with joy again. They rushed over to embrace Buddy, each gathering around him as if celebrating a long-lost friend. In that moment of reunion, the community realized not only how much they cared for Buddy, but also how deeply they had come to care for one another amidst their shared worry. The bonds formed through their collective love had grown stronger than ever, leaving them grateful for both the challenges faced and the joyous reunion that followed. As the search for Buddy intensified, the sky began to dim with the approach of evening, wrapping the library in a cloak of uncertainty. Anxiety hung thick in the air as families continued their quest, calling out his name, their voices tinged with desperation. Just as hope started to wane, a sudden rustling from behind a cluster of bushes caught David's attention. "Wait, did you hear that?" he called out, sprinting toward the sound. The tension was palpable as everyone halted and turned toward him, hearts racing with anticipation. With every step David took, the group followed closely behind, breaths held tight in their chests. The moment felt suspended in time. Each second weighed heavy with longing and fear of what lay ahead. Then it happened. A joyful bark erupted from behind the foliage. Buddy emerged, his golden fur glistening like sunlight breaking through clouds. His tail wagged furiously as he bounded toward them, dirt smudged on his coat but otherwise unscathed. Relief flooded the area like a tidal wave. Tears sprang to many eyes as laughter erupted among those who had been anxiously searching. Emily dropped to her knees, holding her children close to her chest as they squealed with delight. "Buddy!" they shouted in unison, arms outstretched. The Labrador rushed into their embrace, showering them with affectionate licks that spoke volumes about his happiness at being reunited. Mrs. Thompson watched from a distance, tears streaming down her face as she witnessed this heartwarming reunion unfold. The community members encircled Buddy and his family like a protective barrier, sharing in the joy of his return while acknowledging how deeply they had all come to care for one another. In that moment of pure elation, human voices blended with joyous barking. The bonds forged through worry and love sparkled brightly against the fading light of day. It wasn't just Buddy who had returned. It was a reaffirmation of community spirit and connection that would endure long after this day. As laughter echoed around them, they realized that they were not just celebrating Buddy's safe return, but also the shared experiences that made their lives richer together. In the weeks following Buddy's heartwarming return, the library transformed in ways that no one had anticipated. Inspired by the joy and connection fostered by the Labrador, Mrs. Thompson, along with her dedicated staff, sought to create lasting changes that would embrace the spirit of community that had blossomed during his time there. The first initiative was to introduce a new program called Reading Pause, where therapy animals, including Buddy, would be invited to participate in reading sessions for children. Schools and families were ecstatic at the thought of kids reading to dogs, an activity designed not only to improve literacy skills, but also to help alleviate anxiety around reading aloud. Children who had previously struggled to engage with books found comfort in Buddy's gentle presence, gaining confidence as they shared their stories with him. In addition to the reading sessions, the library began hosting regular pet therapy days, allowing patrons to bring their pets for special events. These gatherings created a welcoming atmosphere where families could bond over their shared love for animals while enjoying themed activities such as pet obstacle courses and educational talks on animal care. Moreover, Mrs. Thompson initiated partnerships with local animal shelters and rescue organizations, resulting in adoption drives held at the library. This initiative not only helped find loving homes for countless animals, but also aligned with the library's mission of fostering community engagement and compassion. The library itself became a vibrant hub of activity, filled with laughter and warmth rather than mere silence. Families who had previously felt disconnected now found joy in gathering together, sharing stories, celebrating their pets, and forming friendships that extended beyond its walls. With Buddy as their unofficial mascot, the library evolved into a space where every visitor felt valued and welcomed. The bonds formed through shared experiences continued to grow stronger, transforming a tranquil sanctuary into a lively community center that celebrated both literacy and love for animals. An enduring legacy of a golden Labrador who had touched so many hearts. As the library settled into its new rhythm, the characters who had been touched by Buddy's presence took a moment to reflect on the changes that had unfolded in their lives. Sitting in a cozy corner adorned with warm light and scattered books, Mrs. Thompson observed families engaging with one another, laughter echoing through the once quiet halls. She recalled her solitude before Buddy's arrival, recognizing how their bond taught her the value of connection and vulnerability. "Love has a way of finding us when we least expect it," she mused, feeling grateful for every heartfelt interaction. Emily, too, found herself changed. She often brought her children to storytime sessions now filled with giggles as they read to Buddy. Today, watching them as they clutched their books and shared animated tales, she felt a swell of gratitude. "He's not just a dog. He's become part of our family," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. "I never knew how much joy could come from something unexpected." The bond her children formed with Buddy was profound, a reminder that love often blossoms in the simplest of moments. Meanwhile, Margaret reflected on her own journey of healing that had been rekindled through the love shared within the community. Having lost her dog, she had felt adrift, until Buddy's affectionate spirit drew her back into life among others. "It's funny how something so small can heal old wounds," she whispered to Emily one evening over coffee, interpreting the joy around them as a collective balm for their hearts. As the weeks rolled on, these reflections echoed among many patrons who gathered at the library. Each day looked different, but the fundamental essence remained the same: open hearts, shared stories, and an invitation to connect. The unexpected arrival of Buddy and the subsequent events highlighted how companionship could foster resilience and joy, leading individuals and families toward healing. In moments both big and small, they learned that even in life's uncertainties, love and connection could flourish unexpectedly, reminding them all that it is the shared experiences that truly enrich the tapestry of their lives. Indeed, Buddy's legacy extended far beyond his time at the library. It was a reminder that sometimes it takes a furry friend to illuminate the paths of togetherness and transformation.